Good morning, Judith.
Good morning, Sonya.
Welcome
Evening.
I said good morning, and I'm like, well, not exactly. It's
I know,
afternoon. Anyway, welcome to the
I want to be
podcast.
Yes, welcome. Yeah, I want it to be authentic. Like, oh, it's
Yeah.
not morning.
It slipped out without me looking at the time.
Mhm.
Anyway, I am Sonya Green, no matter what time of day it is.
Mhm. And I'm Judith Fender.
And today we're here to talk about constraint.
Constraint. So important, Sonya.
It is, but even saying it, constraint, it
Right.
doesn't sound fun.
Right. You get a visual of like somebody's neck and things just being tight, or like tight pantyhose. Do people still wear
Oh.
pantyhose? I mean, I don't even know.
I don't know that they wear them too much, but that is a great image for me. For people who I used to have to wear them. It was an official part of my wardrobe, my uniform, so to speak. So yes, some other words that I looked up when we started studying for this podcast. Some other words were confinement, restriction, captivity, limitation. None of those sound fun, do they?
No.
So why are we going to argue for this?
What do you want me to do? You want me to give the spoiler alert?
Give the spoiler alert. Absolutely.
Constraint brings freedom.
Constraint brings freedom. So confinement and restriction bring freedom?
Yes.
Tell me more.
Yes. Well, when we exercise constraint, whether we exercise constraint of our thoughts, whether we which is going to inevitably, by constraining our thoughts, we are constraining our time on the calendar. We're constraining ourselves to our meal plan. We're constraining ourselves to whatever thought process that's going to help us achieve the goal in the long run. Constraint helps you get to where you want to go on time and still have fun and freedom to have the best life you deserve.
Yeah. So I did some kind of unusual reading as I was preparing for this. Typically, if I'm preparing for a podcast, I'm reading in the self-development world. But when I was doing some reading on constraint, I actually was reading some articles on business and business theories. And the popular theory in business used to be that innovation, you had to have free open spaces to innovate in companies. You had to be able to have this freedom of thought and freedom of, so you do all these retreats where you're going off into the woods and doing the trust exercises and things, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Sounds amazing.
But the more, I think today people have started to come around to the idea that it's not freedom that brings innovation, it's constraint
that brings freedom
and
innovation.
Yes. So I think a lot of theories are being kind of turned on their heads with this idea. So that's why something that doesn't sound very fun is actually something that we're arguing can free you in many ways, whether it's, like you said, whether it's weight loss, whether it's time, whatever it is.
Agreed.
But I just thought that was interesting because I didn't really expect to read that. That's why it was. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what I heard in that, even that business model with my coach's ear, I hear like binge restrict. The cycle is going from one way to the other.
Yes.
On the paradigm. Yes. Versus like trying to find something in the middle which ironically, the practice of constraint is with our thoughts, or there's just always that. I'm thinking of my screen door analogy. If we can just get to that place where we can control the flow, control the energy, be in the moment. And this sounds really amazing if I had this 2 hours ago when I was working on my calendar, but it kind it came to me. I've really been working on my calendaring to create the results of more time, especially with my husband. And it's going to require a lot of constraint for me to get to the freedom that I want. And it's doable.
Yeah.
And it's going to pull on every nerve,
Yeah.
every familiar pathway, every familiar feeling, every indulgent, overwhelmed, confusion, people pleasing process that I have been going through is going to be tapped into.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
already feeling it.
that's what options do, right? How many times have we seen people who don't plan their meals, or they don't schedule their time because they're like, oh, I don't want that constraint. I don't know what's going to come up. What if my friends invite me out to eat? Or what if I get the opportunity to do this thing over here instead? Wouldn't that be better? And that's a trick that our brains play on us all the time, right? Oh, there might be something better. I don't need to constrain. But yeah, it's just opening us up for confusion.
Confusion and overwhelm and people pleasing.
Yes.
Right? Because what if, because I found myself asking, well, what if my husband comes home? What if he's home this day? His schedule is a little more dictated. And while that is true, it's just not super helpful for me to plan that way when I know for sure Saturdays and Sundays are going to be the days my best bet to see him. And what if I work around that, constrain my week so that my weekend is more in balance with what I'd like to create. Yeah.
Yeah. And, there are always ways around. I don't want to say it that way. There are always ways to make the things that are important to us happen. So let's say your husband does walk in one day and say, honey, I took off today. Surprise.
That would be such a surprise because he never takes a day off. We own our own business. It would be a holiday. I would be like, what? It's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It's not Thanksgiving.
But let's say that he did that. Because that's the question people always have around constraint, right? I plan my day, I plan my calendar, I plan my food, I plan whatever. And then my partner or somebody, they come in and they just say, surprise, we're doing this today. How do you handle that when you're practicing constraint?
If it's my calendar, I don't know that I'm prepared to answer that question. Like if I had clients, clearly I would honor the calendar. Well, this may be very telling here.
Yeah.
If I had scheduled time to study something, I can see the potential here where I would be like, oh yeah, I'll study later. Yeah, let's go out.
But who gets the final say no matter what it is?
Me.
Yes.
Yeah. And that would be managing my thoughts, whatever comes up, is knowing that if I said yes or no, changed my schedule or not, would be owning it and not indulging in the overwhelm and the confusion and the dilly-dallying and him hauling around.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the whole thing. We are always adults who get to choose what we do in the end, right? So constraint just helps to give us, I think, guardrails.
Yeah.
That's what I think about. Yeah. Bumpers. It keeps us on the path we're going on. If we have an opportunity to deviate, which we will.
Yeah, because
whether it's your husband taking off or not.
But I'm serious. If he came home and said he took the day off, I would have a hard time.
You'd be like, what?
Oh, what?
But let's say, your daughter popped in or something like that. It doesn't matter. There will be occasions when somebody is off on the side, going, hey, over here.
Let's go play.
Yes, that will always happen at some point. But we get to manage our mind around that. We get to make the decision, right? And then we get to deal with whatever the consequences are on the other side of that.
Agreed. That hasn't happened. So I have, fortunately, he comes, the status is he comes home every day in between and rests in the lazy boy. So I know he's not, there's no deviation from the pattern there. I just wanted to interject that.
I think that's funny.
Yeah. What else about constraint? I'm sorry. So this morning I had low blood pressure at workout. Going off on bunny trail here this morning. My trainer was just checking in on me. I have never really had that. It's very much a surprise on my health.
So how did that affect your workout?
Oh my gosh. Well, very lightheaded, dizzy. And it was very confusing because I expect it when I might be actively trying to lose weight or, eating really clean foods, and was not doing that. And this morning, I'm like, what in the world? I was headache, literally feeling like my blood was either in my thighs or in my head. Because, it's a lot of up, down. And I'm like, okay. Anywho, I know it's a bunny trail. So,
well, not really, because that's something that deviated from your plan, right?
It sure did, because the last 15 minutes of the workout was kind of a bust. I would do just about as little as I could get away with. And I just eventually ended up on the rower because I just kept looking at it going, all my blood will be stationary. I'm not going to be like doing a burpee and then doing kettlebell squats. It's going to be just row, and my head will be at the same elevation.
Right.
So it did impact my day. Then I had to come home and throw some salt in my water. And then I had to have all the thoughts of, well, now I'm going to swell. That's just what I need, some extra salt.
How did you manage that? How did you constrain those thoughts? Because
I knew the health benefits. It was going to far outweigh that. If I was truly depleted in my sodium, it was not going to be a problem. And I know, anyway, I'm fine. I tossed a little salt in my water and carried on. Here I am. 6 hours later, I'm still kicking.
You managed your mind around it.
I did. I just moved on. I read a couple articles. I did do a little Google search on it, to make sure. Avoided a hot shower. Apparently that's what you do.
Yeah. Handle the problem and moved on.
Yeah. Anywho.
So what are some ways that you practice constraint in your daily life, and where have you seen it? Why are you advocating for it today?
Why am I advocating for constraint? I am advocating for constraint and for the big picture personally, like I've already said, in my calendar, to drop the overwhelm, reduce decision fatigue, make the decision ahead of time, what needs to be done, what I want to do, and then listen carefully, follow through. As painful as it will be in the moment, my brain's going to want to research one more time. My brain's going to want to tell me the grammar's not right, or ask somebody to read it, and have all the doubt in the world and all of that BS that I've
And why does your brain do that?
It's a habit brain. It wants to keep me safe.
Yes.
It's just that's what it'll do on autopilot if I don't manage my mind.
Yeah.
And the trick is with the brain, I think we talked about anxiety and my ability to really dial in with my anxiety. And what I'm realizing is hello, life coach of 2 years, still figuring this out for herself, that it does. I indulge in the same thing on my calendar. It impacts I get in the emotional brain. I can't access my cognitive thinking. And that is probably, if I had one powerful aha out of this whole experience, has been when you're in your emotional brain, whether it's confusion, overwhelm, self-doubt, people pleasing, or anxiety,
Mhm.
The ability to tap into the cognitive brain or want to get shit done is limited.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I never realized that. And I wonder how many times I got through college thinking that's what got me through, was all the drama and the stress. And it is still, I'm 54. College was, golly, 30 some years ago.
Mhm.
And here I can still heighten myself to that place. So it's just amazing. It really, it sounds so basic.
Yeah. Well, but I want our listeners, especially if they are new to thought work,
Mm-hmm.
I want them to understand that in the beginning, when I was talking about constraint and how that sounds
Mhm.
so horrible, and how confinement and restriction and
Mhm.
captivity and those words sound so horrible,
Mm-hmm.
our habit brain tells us all of those things are bad. And in the same way, when we try to constrain, our habit brain tells us
This
how
is bad.
awful. Oh, it's awful. You don't need to
This
do
is
that.
wrong. No, you need this and that. And
And it
yeah.
sounds, I think you said this when we were pre-gaming. I don't think you said this on the podcast, but it sounds so logical. Our habit brains make perfect sense when they are
Yes.
trying to fool us.
This is a true story. I have my own coach, and I've been working with her on this one particular thing without giving it all away. And I was coached 3 years ago in life coach school on this,
Uh-huh.
and it feels so true. I mean, that my stories don't make sense. They don't follow a structure. If I was to get a grade on this, that's always my logical brain goes, if I was to get a grade on this, I would not get an A. This would
And
be a
by
D.
on this, you mean,
The sentences that I want to say,
yes.
that surely there must be some other format, some structure, something I'm missing. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. And you know that you hyper focus on that, because
Mhm.
what's the thing you always tell me that I bring to our podcasts?
Oh, logic, steady,
Structure.
structure.
Structure is the word you use all the time. And I'm like, I guess I've never thought of it as structure, because that's not the area that my brain focuses on, right?
Mm. Yeah, because I'm like, structure to me, especially, and my thinking is, I think it just reverts back to grades
Mm-hmm.
somehow, that there is a right and a wrong way,
Yeah.
and there's a way that's going to get me an A.
Yeah. And constraint will never get you an A, right?
No,
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 constraint
but
is the way of the D or the F.
just do it. I mean, it is. Oh my God. Can y'all hear me coaching myself here? Seriously, Judith, just do it. Quit
So,
taking it personally and just put your words out there.
yeah. So how do you practice constraint? Like, how do you on a daily basis, when your brain says, "Oh, I need to read one more article," or I need to save time just in case something happens and I want to go on a hike, or how do you practice constraint? What's some practical advice you can give somebody who's new to this?
Put it on your calendar and honor your calendar, and make it super doable in the beginning. Make it, there needs, I don't know, putting, I don't know. You put me on the spot here, because I'm
I'm
like somewhere
sorry.
between my calendar and my no BS planner. But it's for me, because I want to keep the end goal in mind.
Yes.
And that is working from home, I could be in self-development all day. I love it. I love
Because
it.
that's safe. It's a
It's
consumption.
yes, I feel like it's gonna make, I'm gonna hear that one thing, or my mind, like, really loves getting. Right now I'm kind of into Michael Springer, y'all, and he is just it just puts my little brain on a vacation, and it feels so in the conscious moment. But it's not producing the results that I want to have, so that when Friday evening rolls around, or Saturday, whenever the end of my week is, that I have the ability to say, well done.
Yes.
Well done. All is done. Now enjoy your weekend. And I've never really had a 9 to 5 job, or especially working from home, and just lots of habits that don't serve me. And when you can see them, and I see the value of the calendar, I can see it like it's right here, 2 feet in front of me.
But that's the thing, the constraint, the reason our brain doesn't like it is because the reward isn't immediate.
Yeah.
The reward is at the end of the week, or at the end of the, whatever.
Yeah.
And our brain wants immediate gratification, where constraint gives us a bigger payoff, but a little farther down the road, depending on what it is.
Agreed. And I also, the reality is, my eyes are good for about 5 hours a day. And so when I'm trying to get things done, and making sure that I prioritize self-development first with my eyes, and then, because I can coach without my eyes, the focus.
Yeah.
But even then, at the end of the day, what's my point? You asked the question.
How you practice.
You just got to start. You just got to start and be willing to not give up, and understand that you're going to have all those thoughts and feelings, and they're all, constrain your thoughts when you have thoughts.
Yes. That's really the first place. When I coach, when I start with a new client, and they're very early in their thought management, they allow all the thoughts to come in. And so teaching them to practice constraint, and we're going to look at this thought. We're going to make a decision about, I always tell them, the 3 questions. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? Yes. And if we decide we're not going to keep that thought, then we're going to practice constraint. And the next time that thought comes in, we're going to say, no, not today. And start with something small. If you're talking about food plans, maybe start with just planning breakfast, or start with, sometimes people need small, doable constraint, rather than let's plan the entire week on Sunday and hit it 100% for the week. And then as soon as they don't, they feel like they failed.
Yep. Which is interesting. I feel like I've been like the master of daily planning for my food. It's not rocket science. I'm going to eat 3 squares a day and no problem. And if I could apply that same concept to my calendaring, the unfortunate part is people are scheduling, 60 days out on my calendar. And if I can't get to a point of meeting myself where I'm at, then people are, the others, my clients are scheduling ahead, but it's all good. It's my process to work out.
Well, full disclosure, I asked you about how you practice constraint because I see you as an excellent practitioner, because you've always been so good at constraining when it comes to food. But when I asked that question, your human brain went straight to not something that you have excelled in, but to something you are working on.
And thank you for giving me credit for that. I'm like, thank you, Sonya.
Well, it's important to know that that's where our brain is going to go every time.
Well, and it is my work right now. It is, been working with, like I said, with my coach on it, and and I just kind of realized today, I'm making this so much more difficult than it needs to
Yes.
be. But my brain's like, oh, but you need to do module 3, 4, 5. Oh, but don't forget about 6, 7. And then you've got this, and like thinking like, oh, I just got to do the whole thing.
Confusion, overwhelm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, overachieving, overthinking. Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to happen, folks, when you're practicing constraint. If I could tell you one thing, it would be to start really small. And the other thing is to know without a doubt that your brain is going to go straight to confusion, straight to overwhelm. And you're going to have to say, I'm focusing on this one thing, this tiny little thing, and I'm not going to think about anything else right now. I'm going to nail this spot, and then I'll move on. Because your brain won't like it.
No, like there's not one part of my brain that is enjoying this. It's so funny because I could coach on this all day long, but then here is my process, and I'm like, oh, but mine's different.
Yeah,
my situation is different.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, but let me tell you how hard it is for me.
Exactly. I'm different. I can't tell you how many times a day I say that.
But you don't know how many calendars I have to look at to make this happen. And you don't know.
Yeah.
That's my story.
And the thing I love is that I know everybody listening connects with that perfectly, because I connect with it perfectly. We all tell ourselves that. Yeah. So time to reel it in, since we're constraining. What's the one thing you want to leave our listeners with?
You first.
I already did. I said focus on one tiny little thing.
Well, that's it
Were
too.
you listening to me?
I'm over here in my overwhelm. My cognitive brain is not on. I'm staring at my calendar.
Yeah.
My brain. And the one thing, identify your patterns. This is not how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if I hadn't nailed my eating constraint, I would be still eating the way I'm planning my calendar, right? Buffering here, buffering there, managing like that. And I recognize the pattern. So that would be my one. What skill can you take from where you are doing something well in your pattern and apply to the pattern you want to create? If it's a short, doable list, and managing your thoughts. It's if you're in overwhelm.
You know, the funny thing is that I think you and I are in opposite places. Like, I am very good at scheduling, but my eating is where I still have problems. And so we're just like flip-flopped.
And I could schedule, but the problem is 60 days out. Like, looking at my schedule for 60 days.
I'll coach you on that afterward.
It's like,
why is that a problem?
Because then it's people pleasing, because I'm going to have to move a client, because when am I going to get my hair done in 60 days? I don't know when that's going to be. And I'm trying to make, oh God, are we done with this podcast?
All right, we're done. We're done.
I say that because, I hear myself getting spun up on and it's all in good fun too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
but it feels like a hot seat though. Y'all know the truth. Here's behind the curtain.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of us being life coaches. We understand where our clients are.
Oh God, yeah.
We understand that, but we also understand the potential for where they can go.
Yes. It's so easy to be on the other side.
It is.
It is. It is, because,
So if you're looking for coaching, you can find me at sonyagreencoaching.com or on Instagram at Sonya, SONYA_green coaching.
And if you would like to work with me, I do coach exclusively for No BS, but you can find me on Just Judy, Instagram, JUSTJUDIE. And it's funny, I like Googled it the other day. I thought, oh, it's just Judy. And if you just Google my name, it'll pull it right up.
Yeah, there you are.
Right? Who knew?
Who knew? All right. If you enjoy this podcast as much as we do,
Yeah.
then we would love for you to either give us a review, give us a comment, tell us something you want us to talk about.
Did you see that Janet W. left a comment?
I did.
Wasn't that so
I
nice?
saw that. I loved it.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you listened last week, then that episode was all hers, thanks to a
Mhm.
question that she gave us. But we'd love also for you to share an episode. It's super easy. And if there's something that you have a friend or a loved one struggling with, just share that episode with them. That helps us. It helps them. It's just a win-win, right?
There you go. Sounds great.
All right. Well, we'll see you all next week. In the meantime, make sure you always make time to listen to us, but constrain.
Constraint.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.